So Joshua, the 4th chapter, verse 19. Anybody had anything last week they wanted to bring up before we went on? No? All right?
Yes.
Yes.
Very few ministers attempt the chapter of Joshua. I don't know why, but you're very seldom.
Okay.
Like teaching on Joshua.
Okay.
And I'm just decided to let somebody do it. I don't think one in a long time.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So let's start 19. Somebody start reading for me.
The people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped at Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal.
Okay.
Keep on.
You finished one?
Yes.
Okay. Talk to him about that. So the last thing we did was the priest came up out of the river. Once everybody else came through, and they put those stones back down there. And once they put those in place, where the priests were standing, and first they put 12 stones where? Yeah, where they pitched their tents, and then they put 12 where?
Where the priests were.
Where the priests were standing. Okay, and so now the priests have been told to come out, and so it says the people crossed the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. Then they camped at Gilgal, just east of Jericho. It was there at Gilgal that Joshua piled up the 12 stones taken from the Jordan River. And so that place, so that gives you a little meaning for Gilgal. I know you all heard of Gilgal. When I was coming up, there was a little church in Hawthorne called Gilgal. Gilgal built Baptist Church. But that just gives you a little insight on Gilgal. Is a place to where they put those stones. And the reason for the stones, he told them was what? Remembrance. So who? Their children. All right. So their children will remember. So it was something that it was a message that would pass down through the generations. And so that's extremely relevant. And so 21. Somebody pick him up for me.
There's a story to the children of Israel saying, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Keep going.
All the way through.
Okay, then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over the Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed over, that all the people of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that is the mighty that you made, fear the Lord your God forever.
So Joshua was a good leader. After the people did this and put the stones in place, then Joshua taught the people. He said, this is why you did. The Bible says and all that getting what? Yeah, when folks understand, they can do a little bit better. Have a little bit more willpower when they can understand why they're doing what they're doing. And so teaching is important. I think bless God bless educators and people that are willing to teach folk. They open up a whole new world to people, and not just we naturally we think about in the classroom, but somebody might be a mechanic, and a little boy passed by a shop, and he tell him, come here, let me show you something. And go and sit there and show him what he's doing and why he's doing it. Or somebody share with somebody the importance of why you change your oil and teach them a little bit more in depth about what it does for the engine. And just the idea just to teach people that are willing to teach. I mean, you really open up doors for people, because once people get an understanding, more than likely they're going to be successful at whatever that area is once they get an understanding. And so right here, You know, Joshua understood that what they were doing was not about them. It was about whom? Yeah, it's about the future generations that will be coming through. And he says, in the future, your children will ask, what do these stones mean? Then you can tell them, this is where this is where God performed a miracle. You know, for some people who had really, you know, suffered some things. Some people who had really had some real tough experiences in their lives. God performed a miracle. And it's kind of like, you know, even the testimony Joanne just shared. You know, sometimes we have things in our lives and they're real, you know. Nobody can dictate how serious your issue is. It might not be something big for them, but it was big for you. You know, it causes you to have to trust and depend on the Lord. But sometimes we go through things where God delivered, and God really caused a miracle to happen in our life, and then we forget those things. And then so we move on through our life and you know, like even like you have people that know God, but they would have you to think that they've known God all their lives. Some people would have you to think that they've never done evil and done unrighteousness before. It's beyond the fact that I'm delivered and I'm living a holy life, but just beyond reproach. You know, don't even want to associate. You know, I think when we went and visited, you know, Melvin's brother when I preached over in Crescent City, and it was some kind of name they called him. What was the name? Pee-wee. And so he said he said everybody here probably knows me as Pee-wee. You know, he's a pastor now, and he said I always be Pee-wee, but my mom makes it known also that I'm Pastor Thomas now also. And so, but the idea that, okay, yes, I'm something new, and I'm blessed, and I'm new, and I'm walking in that, but I'm not embarrassed about where I come from. I don't think anybody, I don't care what you did in your life, I don't think nobody should be embarrassed or ashamed about their past. Your past is yours. It's yours. You own it. It's not my past. Your past is your past. My past is my past. We have to own our past, and I don't think we should walk around ashamed. Not that we're proud, but we shouldn't hang our head in shame. It was something, a mistake that, if it was a mistake, yours might not have been a mistake, but if it was a mistake that we made it, we learned from it, and we're doing better now. But it doesn't mess me up so bad that I went through that I'll deny, you know, that I had to go through it, that I have to be totally disassociated. And so I'm not going to walk around. I was never a drug dealer, but I'm not going to walk around and say, yeah, drug dealer. But if an opportunity came and presented itself, and somebody needed to know that I was delivered from what they're wrestling with, I'm not so high that I can't say, you know what, same thing you're going through, you know, I was going through. You know, I had an abortion. You know, when I had this issue right here too. I think the idea is you put stones in place, because see what the stones also symbolize, it reminds them of the miracle, but it also reminds them of where they had to come from. See, they were not always in the promised land. They to get to the promised land where the stones were, said that you were wandering lost for 40 years. And then before that you were in captivity. And so those stones also, even though it speaks of a miracle, it's deeper than just a miracle about crossing water. It's a miracle about God literally bringing you out of a real bad place. I think it's important that we are willing to do that, and I think it's really important because our future generation. Because if we forget our past, what's the old saying say? People that Yeah, we're bound to repeat it. And so I think it's really, and especially, you know, I think there's some black people that don't like the idea of talking about civil rights and the struggles, and I think there's some people that say, you know, you can forget about that. And I understand some people might just, you know, just live the whole thing. Okay, walk in your deliverance. But I don't think you just forget. I think you have markers in place. So you remind your children, you know, our children now, you know, I think many of them are really disconnected from, you know, what we had to go through to get there. I think they think that we just, I don't even know if they don't know about the boats. I don't even know if they even know that we came over on slave ships. But even if they know we came over on boats, I think they think we jumped off the boat and life was good. And then take advantage. They don't take advantage of a lot of opportunities and privileges that we afforded nowadays. And I think a lot of it has to do because they have not been taught. And people that have not been taught, those are people that are headed for dangerous places. What y'all think about civil rights and markers and things like that? Mark and Sister Miller.
I was disappointed the last week or so, just speaking to some younger people who are 18 and older, some younger people who are 18 and older, and they expressed to me that they had no desire to vote. And I was really stuck for words to, you know, because I didn't go through the civil rights movement, but I read about it. And I read what occurred when people, you know, were denied voting, dogs were turned on them. You know, I saw movies and clippings of all these things that folk had to go through in order to get the right to vote. And these young people, I think more of them were in their 20s than 18, had never voted and didn't want, I don't want to do that. So, I mean, my point overall is to say to them, if you don't vote, you can't complain. But it's bigger than that, because there's so many people that suffer in order to give you the right that you're able to vote and you don't want to exercise out. I'm really hurt by those few people.
I don't think you should have been hurt by them. I think you should have been hurt by the people that should have had the responsibility to teach them.
I know it was from lack of know, and that's a chain. It's horrible to say it, but that's like a chain effect in some areas. Tinkering now, where people are not instructing their children that this is something that you have to do in order to have your voice heard, etc., etc. You know, but I'm still very disappointed.
Sister Milton, Karen, Milton, and
I was going to comment on what he was saying.
Sister Milton, Sister Milton.
2 points. First point, I personally have always been struck with the Jewish history and the fact of how they won't let you forget those things.
Amen.
They just won't let you forget. And it has always struck me as very strange that we as a race as a whole tend to be ashamed of slavery. I think this would be a very different country if we had taken the Jewish attitude about the same attitude that they have about the Holocaust. We had taken that about slavery. It would be a very different place. But for whatever reason, as a race, we are ashamed of it. Nobody really believes that their ancestors, you know, didn't go on the boat and died and in the field and all this. We just push that out of our mind. Second point, family story. My nephew's failing history and his mother is trying to help him with the class. And he says, I don't know, Mama. He said, this woman just keeps talking about this food tax. And I don't even know what food tax is. I don't know why we have to learn this. My sister writes a book, it turns out that they're studying poll tax. Poll tax people have, black people have to pay voting on this. My father was sitting listening to his grandson. And he said, boy, let me tell you something. The I got the decision to tell my nephew, my father had been, the men in the community had gathered together in East Birmingham. We were all going to go down and vote. And for whatever reason, some of them chickened out. And my dad went down and he said, about 10 or 20 of them went. And they let him pass. The test that they gave, he said they would ask people questions like, you know, how many stars are there? How many stars in the sky? How wide is the world? Just any kind of stupid question. And I forgot what they asked my father. There was some silly question like spell chicken or horse or something. Just idiot stuff. But anyway, they decided to let him, and they gave him he paid his tax. So they was like, it wasn't that much. It wasn't a large thing. And gave him this little card, which my father had kept. And he pulls out the card and was nice enough. There was a time when he had to take a test. And he had, hey, this was after he got up on the courage to go, because they were beating up people that were going. And he said, don't think that this is just in the book. He said, the book only tells you a pretty picture. I can tell you the true picture.
Right.
He told us all the things about it. Anyway, Jonathan takes his card. John Calvin wrote that in 1950 something. And bottom line is the teacher sort of pressed because my father. And Jonathan gets grades up. But the whole point was that my nephew was sitting there just totally out of it. And he's sitting there with history right in the house. And nobody thought it was worth telling.
Right. And I think that's a piece that, I think that's a critical, just conversation. I think life gets so busy and we get running and just something that's so powerful, we neglect it and then fall back so far just dialogue and conversations and I mean that's how I used to be. I remember I used to go pick orange juice with my granddaddy or pecan or whatever was in season, and I'd be working hard, but he'd be talking to me the whole time. And I think just those kind of conversations with people that you don't necessarily need to have a PhD, but people that have experienced life, I think that's what our young people are missing. Karen?
When we were a segregated society, but that's all we could do at night, were to talk at the table and eat our cornbread and collard greens and stuff, and make the children lunch for the next day or whatever. That's the supper table. And those look like the Reverend was saying, those little things when he was doing out in the pecan field and pulling the oranges, those little minor conversations would tie us over got us through the segregation. When we got into immigration, somebody got camouflaged. And our kids bought into the other persuasion 99.9%.
That's good.
You know what I mean? And somehow we decided for God to go back and celebrate what we had accomplished. When I remember, I'm part of that integration movement, and we were proud to stand out there because we knew down the road we were paving the way for our future and the minority schools that are going before us.
I want to challenge, and I think I'm going to lose, but I want to challenge just to be an adversary. Okay, so you made a statement that, and like I think I'm going to lose, but y'all can come in. You made a statement that after segregation, that this change started happening. Well, I wasn't even born. I was born like 2 years, well, it depends on where you live. But I wasn't even born until 66, so 2 years after the passing. But I remember in the 80s, almost 20 years, past those times that you all are talking about, it was my great-granddaddy, that was my granddad that picked stuff, but my great-granddaddy was a farmer. I remember out in the field with my great-granddaddy calling the pigs, sweet. And while we would be taking slop out there to feed the pigs, conversation again. But that was 20 years after. But he still had enough focus on one, to be willing to sacrifice and let his grandchildren come and stay with him for the summer. And then two, we had to get up in the morning, and if we wanted to eat, we had to go get the eggs from the chicken, and bring them back to Aunt Baby. And while she was cooking, had to go feed the hog with granddad. But this was 20 years after that. Way after Jimmy Carter was the president. This was a long time after that, but he was still taking the time to have those conversations that still, I think, put something in me that made me turn out to be a decent person that I might not be a history buff, but I do appreciate history. And so I challenge that. I think that desegregation ruined it. I challenge that. Now, I don't say ruined it, but started the demise.
Demise of what?
This family connection and cohesiveness and I think a lot of times we say that desegregation is here, but I don't think desegregation. I don't think it was desegregation.
Rawls, I had a conversation before I came here tonight. And I'm still upset over the election. I'm upset because as far as I can see, St. Augustine is as segregated now as it was 40 years ago.
You said 40?
40.
Okay.
40, 50 years ago. Segregation has been a part of my life forever and a day. It has not changed. It is predictable almost what's going to be and what's going to happen.
But how does that affect cohesiveness as a group of people?
It affects me and my people because I've got on the phone to tell my daughter what happened, tell somebody in Washington what happened, tell my sister what happened, because it's a big deal. We all came from St. Augustine, and St. Augustine is a part of it. And what happens here is a big picture of what is going on in the world. I don't know if people realize how serious this is. We are engaged in a grave civil war.
But I mean, I think that's valid what you're saying. But I don't think that has a whole, maybe 20–30%. But I don't think it has a whole lot to do with our children.
It's a lot of knowledge to the children.
But it doesn't matter if everybody hated us and made us live on a plantation when it was segregated. Or when it was, or if it not, I don't think that has the power to dictate. Sister Miller said it perfectly. With Jewish people, I mean, they are extremely proud of what they've gone through, their heritage. They know it. They're devoted. Huh?
We don't tell them. They've been told. When you look at education, I'll give you an example of my house. Sherry called me up one day upset. My granddaughter was in the 7th grade. She said, "Mom, you come out here and talk to this girl before I kill her." I said, "What did she do?" She came home with a C and thought it was okay. It is not okay in my house. You don't break no C's in my house. And history and understanding what family is and what it means is important to the extent all of them that live around me had to go through certain things and they know what it is about history.
Let me ask my question again. I still think we're missing my question. My question was, this was a conversation I had with Karen, then I'm getting ready to get Melvin, then Octavia, and Judith. This is a conversation I was having with Karen. My question was, or my point was, I don't think desegregation ruined the ability to be cohesive, informed, And as a people, for black people, and we're all coming from the book of Joshua, to where Joshua took the time to teach the people why the stones were there and what the stones were connected to in their past. And the conversation was that I think that that's a failure that's happening now. We're failing to teach the future and have them respect the past, so that they can build upon it and not fall back. And then Karen, and then we're just in a dialogue. There was a point made that it seemed that desegregation, when desegregation kicked in, that's when everybody, that's when African Americans as a whole began to fall back and not have that type of unity and that type of connection. And then my response was, I understand the argument, but I don't think it's a valid argument, because I personally, and it might just be a one odd fact or not the norm, but can remember my granddaddy and my great-granddaddy spending time talking with me about just things. And so I didn't think that the desegregation was a valid argument to say that that's the reason why we fell back. And I don't think Karen was saying we were justified for falling back. I think she just pointed out an event. Melvin and Octavia.
I really think that today's society, when you talk about racism, was my age group, it's a shame. We feel like telling to our kids, we're ashamed of telling them what our grandparents and great-grandparents went through, so that we have what we have today. The second part of that is that when you talk to kids and listen to the language that they use amongst themselves, not just black kids, white kids, even have Hispanic kids using the N-word like it's part of the language. When you ask them, you say, hey, why you just call him? Oh, that's my home. That's my good friend. So, and when you look at it in the school aspect of it, the school even got it. I can remember when I was a young kid going to school, 8th grade, and then in the 10th grade, we watched the movie Roots, even though it was painful to sit there amongst our counterparts in school and see them laugh and snicker at some of the words that were being used, even though we knew it was hateful and it was mean and degrading to us. They don't do that. They're more concentrated, and I'm not saying that it's a school fault, the reason why that they should go back to teaching about what happened in the past, because, like you say, it should be something to talk about at home. But we as parents, we don't know how to express it because our kids use it in a normal tone. They call their best friend, who's a white guy, a white girl. That's my N-word.
And then, but whose fault do you think that is that they're comfortable doing that?
I think it's society because it changed. The roles changed quickly.
Let me give you the issue. When my kids, even in high school, they were listening to music. I say, if they were back in the back listening to some headphones and have a CD or something like that, just at random, I might say, let me see what you're listening to, and put it in the CD player in the car. And if I put it in the CD player in the car, and they know if it didn't sound right, they knew where it was going. And they know whatever I bought them, Will Smith was what I bought them. You like rap music, you're gonna listen to Will Smith or something like that right there. But I don't think it's society. I think it's the parent that has to say, you know what? Ask for me in my house. This is the way that we gonna do it. And I think to put it, I don't think we're pointing the finger in the right place if we put it on society. I think the parent, that way we're going. I think it still lies on the parent or the authority figure, and then it can even grow to the village to teach. This is why you don't do it. I know, understand, everybody else is doing it, but this is why you don't do it. We even had a talk. We have little family sessions and stuff, and we had a talk one time. I think think Ron was in college, I think Kier was in high school, and Jamal in elementary school, something like that. But we would sit around talking, and so I asked the question. I said, "Any of y'all curse?" You know, and I said, "Don't trip. I ain't gonna beat nobody, but I just wanna know that your dad. I promise you, I won't beat nobody. But be honest with me, do anybody curse?" And so, you know, Ron was like, "No, I think it's stupid. It sounds stupid to me." You know, Jamal. But my daughter said, "Yeah, that was the last one. That's my baby." But my daughter said, "Yeah." And so we had a good conversation and got a chance to just talk about, you know, how you, and so I didn't, because I promised that I wasn't going to get on. And so we had a chance to talk about what is it that you get out of it when you talk like that? Why? What? And then after we got finished talking about it, we had a good family conversation, you know, without me and Michon forcing it. You know, everybody was like, you know, yeah, it is kind of, it's not the smartest thing to do, you know, talking like that right there. And it doesn't set the best image if you're trying to impress people that might need to write a resume for you, a reference letter for you or something like that one day. But I think those kind of conversations, you know, that families have, I think that families bail out on that responsibility to have those. But I think if family would commit to doing that, it's beautiful. You and Michon told me not to call you Marilyn last night. She told me to call you Judy. And I said, no, that's what I saw on the new members card she's doing. And so that's why I'm gonna keep calling her. But I think it's nice that y'all bring your whole family to Bible. You know, and I think that's what it should. I think that the family has to bear responsibility. I can't blame the community on my child. And my children have done things, but if I need to get in their business and find out what's going on, I think it still lies on the family. I'm gonna let you respond and come out to you.
Well, I can't actually speak from what I actually see. I'm just saying from what I've heard other people say. Because, you know, I know some every now and then they might use the N-word, but on the collective level, they don't use it. And I'm pretty sure they know what it means and all like that because of what me and Junior do. But when you look at the community, parents are not parents. You got grandparents that are raising grandkids, and they're not really educated because they at 68, 70 years old, and they're tired of this. When they're supposed to be enjoying the golden years, they got little kids, teenagers that they're raising, that they have they don't seem to be got how to raise people because they're in different kind of stuff and doing different kind of stuff. Because when we grew up, the highest thing that I can remember that was drug life was marijuana. You smoke marijuana, you were cool, but nowadays you got crystals, meth, you got kids huffing, eating bath salts, eating soap to get high, sniffing it, and you know that stuff I never would have factored that you get high or doing anything like that. Right. And that's what I mean by society.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different influences. So you know, parents don't get to speak to racism, what went on back then. I think the main focus is mainly focus on what a drug can offer you. And they have to be just like whipped cream. You can't even keep the whipped cream in the house once you get in. That's a hallucination.
All right, Octavia, Judith, and Mark.
Well, when I was in middle school, so this was 99, 2000, something like that. We have a cousin. All of my family is in Florida besides my one cousin who lives in Memphis. And my parents made it a point that when we went to Memphis, now I don't know if we went there specifically for this, but when we got in Memphis, we went to the Lorraine Hotel. The Lorraine Hotel is where Dr. King was shot. It has since been turned into a civil rights museum, and you can walk through there and see all kinds of stuff. From the garbage men, they have the room where Dr. King stayed, it's enclosed in glass. But my parents took the time, that was something that was important to them, and so it became important to me. And so I agree with you saying that it's the parents' responsibility, because when my children grow up, they're going to know in summer camp. Some of our kids are educated, some of them know nothing. One day we had a conversation, we got on the topic of what does it mean to be black. So I took out the whiteboard and then they started naming all this stuff, and you should have seen it, like, you gotta let go, it's talk, it's slang, have big rims on your car, ride loud. So then it was an opportunity to re-educate or try to shed some light on something, show them something different. But I think oftentimes adults see what's going on with today's youth and get turned off by it instead of being motivated by it to correct and instruct. The first time for me, the first time they show disinterest doesn't mean I'm going to stop telling or not tell at all. It just means, okay, there's something else you got to work through before you can get to that. So, I mean, all is not lost, because then you have, I feel like there are some people my age who are getting back to the I don't know, the activist stage. I was involved, Martin Lee Anderson, I don't know how many people remember that, this young boy was killed in boot camp. When I was in college in Tallahassee, we shut down the city in the middle of 5 o'clock traffic to march and to let our voices be heard. And I feel like, I don't know. So all isn't lost, but they're definitely, I don't know if you agree with this, but if parents aren't the ones educating and teaching and reminding, whose responsibility is it then? We talk about a village raising a child. Well, the village can't be split of the children, or just feel like all is lost on them, because then nobody's educated and we're keeping all the knowledge to ourselves. So.
No, I mean, your argument, your point is the basis of my argument. Because there are lots of people try to paint a picture and make it seem like it, and I'm not saying it's great, but there are lots of people that are very grounded and know what the Stones mean, know what the Lorraine Hotel means, know what all the stones that we see in our lives, and they're not always national monuments, but they know what the stones mean, and they experience the same desegregation and everything else. And but when the breakdown happens and the parent does not do it, I think it's the church's responsibility. As individuals also, but I'm just talking as a pastor, I think it's the church's responsibility to fill that gap. And so I remember when I was in Jasper, and in Jasper, every church, but St. Paul, and you don't do everything, so I'm not disappointed. You don't do everything the same way everywhere. But every church that I pastored before I came to St. Paul, I had more youth in Bible study than adults. And so we would probably, I'm talking little small churches, we might have 20, 25 adults, but then we have 40, 50 youth. And they they look forward to Bible study. I made sure that they ate afterwards, and that's why I came here and tried to do the same. Y'all remember in the beginning when you had the youth coming, but you got to have those resources to stay consistent on the teaching side. But I think, and so I had one of my adults, brought it up in a church meeting one time, official board meeting, said, hey, I think that parents are taking advantage of us. We would have 50, 60 kids every Wednesday night in Bible study. They'd be sitting there waiting, on Bible study to start out in the road. And one of our members said, I think that parents are taking advantage of us, and they're just sending their kids around here to get rid of them. And then I share with everybody in that meeting, if they don't send them somewhere, don't y'all think this is the place? Amen. We should embrace that. If that's what they embrace that, let them send them to us, because that's an hour and a half that we know that they're gonna get good stuff put in them. And so we got to make a little sacrifice. If they got to mess us as church up a little bit, let's do this right here. And the same attitude I take here. It wasn't our table, but one of our counselors this summer. And And I share with our counselors after I've hired them and they start working. I don't tell them before I hire them. But I share with them after they started working that now this is not your normal group. Not that every kid is a task, but it's not the YMCA. All right, it's you got kids that'll sit and say, okay, I'm eight now. I'll be locked up by the time I'm 14. My dad's locked up, my granddad's locked up, and they probably catch me by the time I'm 14. You have kids that think like that, and you have kids that with some challenges that come from situations where they might not provide the discipline they should, or coddle them a little too much and believe everything they say a little too much. And so there are a lot of challenges. And so I shared with that counselor that, she said, Reverend Rawls, how do you do it? These kids are different. I mean, these kids are really different. And I said that's why I do it. That's the reason why, because I feel like if I have the opportunity to have them from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 weeks in the summer, just imagine, every morning they're in a Bible class, they're doing something constructive all throughout the day, and to have the opportunity to have your hands on children that might be encouraged because of society to go another way, but you have that type of influence. I mean, and then we find out from 9 times out of 10, most of the counselors that work here, they develop relationships with these kids beyond camp, and they become Facebook friends and deal with these kids beyond camp, and that's a positive person that now they have in their life, because of that side. And yes, it tears that church up. I know it tears that church up, but just imagine the positive thing that's happening, because of what we do. So I tell you, a long answer to your question is that I believe that it's our responsibility to step in when the family when the parent, mother, father is just unequipped to do that. Judith, Mark, and Tony. And I think Karen, is that your hand? Okay, Judith, Mark, Tony, and Karen.
Okay, a couple different things. I was born in 1941, and I knew as a kid that if I did something wrong, my mother found out. And anybody here who's of that era knows that. Your mother found out, and your mother told your father, and let me tell you, you got your mom's back. Because your neighbor either said to you, just a minute, what are you doing? Or I'm going to tell your mother, and you knew Mrs. Craig was going to tell your mother. So the parents were stricter. One thing happened right around the time of desegregation, and that was television. And I use that as the way the families, because before TV came in, the evenings would be set sitting on the porch, talking. My aunt would come across the street, my grandma would come across the street. We'd sit, we'd all play games. Now, the only time we play games as a family is on Thanksgiving. If we've all eaten, we get the games out and we play. But you don't have that because families don't communicate because there's technology now. And I think that so many of the movies, the shows, have changed the way people act because they think that's the way you're supposed to act. And you don't have a lot of families, and I didn't say that for people that I know, that you don't have a lot of families where everybody sits down at the dinner table together and you talk. Everybody's eating at different times. I think that families, when you eat together, it makes a major difference because you really have time to interact and to ask and to find out. We're all on so many crazy different schedules. The other thing I was thinking about is...
Can I check some on your technology, please?
Yes.
And it's even worse now, because now all I have to do is send you a text message. I don't even have to talk to you. I just send you a text instead of have a human dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Alice, about 6 months ago, maybe a little longer than that, sent me, we all send, and every now and then emails back and forth to each other, the the little emails, the jokes or whatever. And she sent me, and I'm going to ask her to give it to you if you've never seen it. It said, where would we be if? And she used all these names of people that I never heard about. This man did this in science, and this man did this, and this doctor did this. And the bottom was, each one of them was a black man or a black woman. Are our children taught that? Are the white kids taught that?
Nope.
Are the black kids taught? Nobody's taught it.
And so who's taught it?
So there's no pride. Well,
Every summer camp, there's a list of about 35 African Americans that contributed something to society. That whether it was peanuts or fire extinguishers or hot combs
probably the list I've seen.
and these kids, they're taught that.
But the
And
schools don't teach it.
by the time we make it to the end of summer camp, now most of them are pro now that's been to summer camp, but they compete at knowing those answers. And all they get a chance is to see is a face, no name, and they have to tell who that is and what they did, and that's what we teach for 8 weeks. That's what they get first thing in the morning. And so if it's not taught out there, whose responsibility is it to teach it? It's our responsibility to teach about the stones. This is what these stones mean. And so I don't buy that because the school system doesn't teach it, that everything, well, I teach it and then I fight legislatively to make the school system do it. But while I'm fighting that to make them do it, I do it. And then if they never want to do it, guess what? I can follow the legal route and go and design my own school, and I can teach it there.
But what you're doing right now also is having conversations that people never have. People never have these conversations. Part of what I love about Bible study is because not only do we learn the word, we have conversations that you don't hear outside. And these kind of conversations are so important. And that's why I'm so thrilled over the school, because you're going to be able to affect children, black, white, children, doesn't matter. I mean, to children who need to know what and need goals in life, who don't have goals, and understand that they can have goals. And the goal doesn't have to be, well, I'm going to be in jail when I'm 14, because that's all I know. They're going to have people say, well, of course you're going to college. Or you're going to technical school, because of course you're going to finish high school. Because so many kids, somebody mentioned before about Jews. And one of the things that because I've lived in Jewish neighborhoods most of my life, and one of the things that you will find in Jewish households is education. I don't care if they don't have a dime. I don't care if they're eating oatmeal for dinner. Education is taught because the Jews have learned through the centuries when they couldn't live in towns and the pogroms would come through and they would kill. Similar to segregation as we have in the United States, that's the way it's always been for the Jews. And the more you read, God tells you that He's going to do that to Israel because they turned against Him. But the one thing that the Jews knew is at 13, the boy would be bar mitzvah. And to be bar mitzvah, he had to know the Torah. He had to know the Hebrew language. He had to be able to read. And if you go through the 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th centuries, when people who were not, the serfs were not allowed to learn to read, the Jews still taught their children to read because they had to be bar mitzvah to be a man.
And I think the way that the African American community, I think the way that we miss it is sometimes you can. What's the best way to eat an elephant? The best way to eat an elephant.
Small piece.
One bite at a time. And so I think so much we look at the whole elephant and say, why even try to eat this thing? Everything is so messed up. Instead of taking your little area, the 5 little kids that you can have an influence with, the 7 people that you can touch, and said, let me have an impact over their lives and just eat this thing a little bit at a time. And so I think so many times we just throw our hands up and say, don't worry about it, I'll go sit in my corner. And let me hit Mark, then Tony, then Karen, then I'll take you. Good conversation.
Judith, you jumped out there on me.
Oh, sorry.
But you're 100% correct. When you said when you mentioned the Jewish people, bar mitzvah and bar mitzvah, because the girls have to have it too.
Right.
So there's a bar mitzvah and a bat mitzvah. So the girl, and it's history is telling the story. Telling the story. History. His story. Telling the story. I believe that, and your piece about desegregation is very much a part of it too, where things were diluted and included, and here's the thing, America really doesn't show a lot of respect to elders. And in Africa, the elders told the story under the tree. That's where the story was told, under the tree. Today, under the tree there's a whole nother different, the irony is they still maintain under the tree. It's very important though. This is where the story was told. That's what history is. His story, telling the story. So Jewish tradition insists upon the kids being bar mitzvah. In Africans, it was a rite of passage, a right to becoming a man. And that has been diluted because we don't respect elders. Nowadays, young kids sell crack to old people, so they don't have any respect for them. And this tree, this under the tree, was a pivotal place where the eldest person of the village told the story. The whole history of this village, how it started, and who was the first king, and you know what I mean? It's so important, and we don't tell those stories. You said something else, and a pivotal reason in this desegregation, which was already implanted in black people as a whole, was this Willie Lynch. I just asked Joanne, does she know who Willie Lynch was? She said no. So I would suggest anybody here that doesn't know who Willie Lynch is, just punch Willie Lynch in your computer tonight and see what happens. That's it. We can have the discussion another time. It'll blow your mind. So, history is so important. It's so important to know. I like what you were saying about a mechanic teaching, this little boy walking down the street, and that can change the kid's life. A carpenter taught that to me. I never went to school for carpentry. I'm a great carpenter, But, and I passed board tests, I built bridges and high scrapers, but a man taught me one day how to do it. He said, if you learn this, you'll never be hungry. That's true. So it's the history, it's all the history, spelling his story. It's just a part, you gotta tell the story, you gotta repeat the story, and share it. Sometimes it's painful to share the story, but you gotta do it because it'll benefit the future. These 12 stones were placed so that you can tell the story. The legacy has to continue.
All right. We hit there. We're almost there with Karen, I think, and I'll take. No, Tony. Karen, and I'll take.
You know, really, desegregation did for me as a person was good. Desegregation opened up my inner faith structure so that I could appreciate all religions. It wasn't just my religion, it was all religions. It opened up my heart to all religions. That's what it did for me. Because, white, black, being against each other, that's been a part of this environment ever since we've been here. But interfaith relationships opened up desegregation. It really did.
Karen,
Okay, this dialogue tonight, this excellent, very good. We did that, and I love it. But however, piggyback on what Reverend was saying about we need to tell the story and also Mark. But we don't tell the story. Only time that I remember in our community is telling the story usually during February, Black History, where we need to start back the first day of the year, which is New Year's, for the Emancipation Proclamation. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Because we don't go to church that does that every year is First Baptist. That's the only one.
It does what?
Huh?
What does it do?
Emancipation Proclamation, that they have a service for that. And they go back as far as Abraham when he signed, Abraham Lincoln, when he signed the Declaration and all that stuff. That's the only church that do it. That's
Now,
every
hold
year.
on now. That's what the watch night service is. That's all the watch night service is. We do watch night. That's what the watch night service is.
No, I'm talking about this is held during the daytime.
What I'm saying, when they were sitting there waiting, watch night, when we have watch night service, that's why we have watch night services in memory of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah, but they have a different style of the program. And it starts at 12 o'clock every year.
You know what I'm saying? It's a style,
Yeah.
but we observe it also in the watch night service. Huh?
We don't know that, sir.
It's on your flyer. You got the ticket. The flyer that I made for y'all, that ticket that's on the flyer. That ticket is what they published in the newspaper where they had people watching and waiting.
Yeah.
So we do it. We might not know why, but that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to correct.
But okay, because the reason why I said it because a lot of people go there at 12 o'clock on New Year's Day to that program, and this is where they explain a lot of things.
Okay, a lot of teaching.
Yes.
Okay.
We at midnight, half the people only coming from the club 15 minutes ahead of time to come to the church, even though we started at 10:30. But however, I was just saying that we maybe switch it up a little bit.
That's when it happened though. At
Yeah.
midnight. That's when it was enacted at midnight. That's why we have a watch night service. That's why when they say watch night,
Yeah.
why everybody in the world all Christians don't do watch night, but the reason black folk do watch night is because that's when it was enacted at midnight on December 31st at midnight, where January 1st, that's when it was law that slavery was legal.
It's not woke.
That's why they have two teams.
Yeah. They woke the next day, right?
Okay, let me get Octavia and Jude, and I think we out of here. And then Destiny.
Well,
Destiny be last one.
this isn't even a thing, but I have to disagree
With
when you
who?
were talking, Miss Judy,
Okay.
when she was talking about technology and ruining families and all that stuff. And I say that because who gives their children access to technology? It goes back to the parents. When my little sister got a cell phone at 8 or something like that. Children come to summer camp with a cell phone. I didn't get a cell phone until I got to high school and actually needed one. But what I'm saying is we can't blame technology when we're the ones giving our children access to those things. And we talked about society and things that are on TV. Disney used to put out these movies. There's one called The Color of Friendship. It was talking about apartheid in South Africa. And then there was another one. I was just thinking about it. I can't remember. But there's a saying that says art imitates life. And so what we put out on TV, I sometimes believe is what people think is happening currently or whatever. But anyways, back to technology. I just disagree with the whole statement that technology ruins families or ruins the way things are happening. Because parents are the ones giving their children access to technology. If you let your child go on the internet, then you need to monitor what they're watching. Block certain TV shows. Let them watch educational shows. I was a history major in college. I love history. Put them in front of a show that's going to teach them something about themselves. Let them watch PBS, but they watch Cartoon Network. Technology is a good thing when used properly, just like everything is good in moderation. So,
Parents need to be responsible. Parents need to be parents.
Yes.
I got you.
Part of what we're talking about tonight is the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery, segregation, and giving children pride in who they are. But I just finished reading, I'm going to read it over. Just finished reading a book, blew my mind. I tell you, it's a book on Africa. It's not Africa now. It's all the various tribes, how they all functioned. And if you read about the American Indians, you know that all American Indians were not the same. Well, the African tribes, the civilizations, the incredible governments that you never read. I think children need to be taught about their heritage and their history, not from slavery and living on a plantation, because remember something, this is 300 years old. That's it. But we're talking about a people who can take their heritage back to the beginning. Eden, the Garden of Eden, it was in Africa.
Come on, somebody.
All the Egyptian. You talk about the powers of the world, the energy, the governments. Let me tell you, they all came out of Africa. Nobody says that. Children don't get that pride. Children get the, oh no, we were slaves and we did this and we did that. And I understand that's important. But that's new history. The old history needs to be talked about. Plus, I just finished, I'm going to send it over to you the minute Tony's trying to finish with it. And I finished it. And, I mean, my heritage is German English. Back, I don't know anybody that's German and nobody English in my family. So I've been here back, I guess, about 4 generations. The German English were babies. They weren't even there when the African civilization started. And that's what we need to teach. We need to teach the real history. Not that Columbus came over and Ponce de Leon came over and that's all nice, but where did they all come from?
The highest learning place,
Oldest we get estimate their time.
Oh,
Timbuktu is the highest educational place and the oldest.
American history class, it was an honors class, so I was like the only black person in there. It was like all white people. So, like when they got on like segregation and stuff, they like, I guess they didn't want to offend me since I was the only black person in there. So they were just like not really being straightforward. They were like talking in like tone, and when somebody felt like somebody said something that was like big, they everybody was like look over at me and see what I was saying. So like when they were like what is Obama known for? Then his boy said like a racial term or something racist or whatever. So I didn't know what it means, so I went and told my mama, because I'm like, Mama, guess what this boy said? She's like, if you don't go tell that teacher, and what? She was like, if you don't go to that school and talk to the teacher, I'll do it myself. I'm like, okay, Mama, it's not that big of a deal. She was like, well, it's kind of a big of a deal, so I went and told the teacher, and she was like, well, everybody has their sense of opinion, da 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 da. And so she was like, the boy went to the meetings or whatever, and like after that, like it was just awkward. They made it so awkward because like everything, they were like, oh, Destiny. How do you feel about that? I'm like, so.
But you know, Destiny, that I'm glad you brought that out. I was thinking about that about 45 minutes ago. Never, no matter how awkward people try to make you feel about things like that, always stand your ground, even when you stand by yourself, even when nobody else agrees and nobody else understands, and you're the only one that thinks the way you think, always stand up for it, because what will happen, the world that we live in will try to make you feel guilty for noticing that racism and things like that, and start using words like the race card and things like, to make you feel like, oh, I can't say that, I can't hang that up, I'm just being too sensitive. Don't worry about anything anybody says. Be sensitive, whatever they want to call it. Play the race card. Whenever you feel like somebody's going to never back down. When we were dealing with this redistricting, they tried to throw us off by saying that we trying to play the race card. Or we were basically saying, you know, we got a district that's 14% now. There's no way in the world we're going to support moving down to 6% or 8%. And they put all that stuff out, and we're trying to play the race card. It don't matter, you say what you want to say. And you just have to block people out and fight the fight. And so just keep doing what you're doing. And unfortunately, you're going, in many instances, you're going to be the only representative. And so since you're the only representative, that means there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. And one, you have to represent well and show how intelligent you are. But two, you came back down, and you have to fight the fight that others aren't able to go and fight because they're in ESE classes. All right, and so you're there for a reason to help others get there, and then others will see you and say, you know what, I can do that. Even though they labeled me early, you know what, I'm coming out of that right. They say they label us early, and they make us think we something that we're not. And but what encourages us to get out of that label that they put on us is when we see people that look like us, that talk like us, but they're doing things that they told me I can't do. And so you got a lot on your shoulders that you got to represent well. All right, but keep this fight. Let me hit Island and Melvin.
Oh, I just want to add to her, just something quick. She told me I couldn't go to school because I was called fraud.
Yeah. Tell your dad to represent well when you go out. If I see it in the police speak, you didn't represent well. You got to represent well intellect. All right?
I was just thinking when this was talking, when I was in high school, I was the one that wanted to do the bulletin boards, Black history and things like that. But my principal was so afraid that somebody would come to that school and see something about Black history up there. They would be upset. So he wouldn't let me do it. Finally, after a couple of years, he let me put a tiny bulletin board, maybe that size, in a side hallway. There was a side entrance to our school. He let me put that there. And I had to take it down within 2 weeks. But
What school you were in?
in South Carolina, I graduated in 1970. There was, well, desegregation was mandatory. You had to change schools. In 71, I graduated the year before you had to go. And those people that went early, that chose to go to other schools, they had a really hard time. They were some of the smartest students in our school, but when they got over there, they barely graduated. But the mindset of even the adults, the teachers, during desegregation was, you know, we can't do this or we can't do that. You can't tell people about what we've done. You know, it was something that they feared.
I remember they.
And this thing, and yesterday about Biden, I see my TV on, and they kept telling, you won't believe what Joe Biden said. You won't believe what Joe Biden said. And it didn't faze me. People talk about, she gonna have you people in chains again. They were talking about unshackling the banks and all that kind of stuff. And you said chains instead of unshackle. What's the difference? It didn't affect me.
Yeah, they misunderstood it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna
Can I clarify one thing that I was talking about first about they have as a new day we have.
Yeah, okay.
That's when we clarify that.
That's we on the same page. I think Lillian, then Mark, then we go on.
I was talking, I had something else to say, but I don't know. They used to tell us that we weren't ready. Now, I was really in segregation. And the word was always from the white folks, we were not ready. And we used to say, well, what we got to get ready for? But they said that over and over and over. Because I finished from a segregated high school. And the first time I was in a class with a white person was when I was in college. But I'm still trying to figure out what we were ready for.
They weren't ready to give up power.
Oh, that was it.
All right, Mark, then we're here now.
I heard a lot about segregation, desegregation tonight, and it's only my opinion, but desegregation was probably one of the most crippling things that ever happened to us. Because, like Lillian said, those students were taught, and they were taught everything by people who nurtured. That's why they say these historic black colleges are so important, because they were taught by their home, and they were taught everything that they needed. I don't care if it was French, they got somebody who could teach them French. But every kid from 1st grade to 12th grade learned those things, even with the borrowed, raggedy, tore down books. They really got educated. And in the system of desegregation, we just got shuffled around a little bit. I mean, we have to take advantage of our own stuff. So I'm not saying that's the reason, but I think when, you know, like FUBU, for us, by us, when we taught our own, they learned a whole lot.
Yeah. I think, and again, I totally disagree with that statement. I think that when you only know how to exist in your little small box, I think that you are very limited and where you can go. Jabez prayed. He said, Lord, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory, meaning that I have this box that I currently live in, but I know that if I'm to be blessed, this box is going to have to get larger. And so I think if you're in an all-black world, all-white world, all-Hispanic world, whatever, if you're in a world that only looks like you and sounds like you, and it only has your experiences, I think that's more crippling than allowing you to become a part of a larger world. And that's how churches die. Churches die when this church right here would die if it thought that it didn't need to make sure that it ministered to our white sisters and brothers, our Hispanic sisters and brothers. We have to make sure that we are open and to grow and to expand. Randy?
Well, I'll keep it short because I know we're about to go. One thing I know, first of all, what we're doing right now, this is a deep, engrossing topic. And this is what educators are trying to do with students now. It's called Common Core. But one thing I'll bring us back to is my hope is built on nothing less. You can finish the rest. And see, I think sometimes we wax nostalgia about days going by. Oh, it was better. No, the best days are right now and those that are coming. See, that's what Scripture tells us. And so I'll leave it there.
That's good. All right, praise God. You have one more thing, sister, or you want to stick a pin in that? All right, that's a good one to stick a pin in. That's a good one to stick a pin in. All right, wonderful. I think this was a great Bible study, great conversation.